I've been talking a lot recently about Ubisoft's current struggles and what it means for the future of a lot of their big franchises. And we know that Ubisoft launched an initiative a few years back to focus and double down on their biggest franchises: Assassin's Creed, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, The Division, and Far Cry. However, Watch Dogs was not included in this initiative, and there's currently no reports of any Watch Dogs game currently being in development. And chances are, if there was going to be a new Watch Dogs game anywhere in the near future, it would already be in development. And after Watch Dogs Legion underperformed in sales with significantly less than its two predecessors, it's very likely that Ubisoft has decided to abandon the IP, or at least for the relative future. Who knows, maybe it'll come back way later down the line. And while I wasn't a huge fan of Watch Dogs Legion, especially compared to the first two games, I was still pretty disappointed by this news because I always believed the Watch Dogs series had tremendous potential, but the series could just never fully reach that next level like some of Ubisoft's biggest franchises. And each game had some sort of issue holding it back. Obviously, the series got off to a rough start when Watch Dogs 1 didn't look as good as its E3 trailer, which turned a lot of people off from that game. Even though the first Watch Dogs had one of the best day one sales of any Ubisoft game, it didn't hold those numbers that well when people realized it didn't look quite as good as advertised. Nonetheless though, the first Watch Dogs ended up selling really well, and it's actually my personal favorite game from the series. I always thought it was criminally underrated, but then Watch Dogs 2 released and fixed a lot of the issues people had with the first game, but unlike the first game, it had subpar sales at launch, likely since a lot of people felt like they were burned on the first game, and I don't also remember them marketing Watch Dogs 2 very well. But Watch Dogs 2 was better received over time and ended up selling pretty well. And that's probably what saved the franchise, because Ubisoft easily could have abandoned it after those initial low sales. But again, I really enjoy Watch Dogs 2, and I know it's a lot of people's favorite game of the series. For me personally, I preferred the darker tone and characterization of Aiden Pierce from the first game. I also have a little bit of a bias being a Chicago native, but I totally understand why so many people preferred the second game. Regardless, I think both games are very enjoyable, and then came Watch Dogs Legion, which tried to go in a completely different direction from the previous two, and of course its main draw being you could play as any NPC you stumble upon in the world and experience the story as them, which I think sounded a lot better in theory than in the actual game, because that resulted in one of the most forgettable narratives I've ever experienced in any Ubisoft game. I think a lot of people preferred having an actual voiced and defined main character like Aiden and Marcus, which is evident if you look at the Bloodlines DLC that brought both Aiden and Wrench to the game, and in my and many others' opinions, was far better than the main game itself. In fact, if they brought back Aiden as the protagonist for the actual full story of Legion, I think it would have been far better received. Seriously, if you're a fan of Watch Dogs 1 or 2, or just a big fan of Aiden or Wrench as characters, I definitely recommend playing the DLC, even if Legion as a game doesn't appeal to you. But after the Bloodlines DLC, aside from the Assassin's Creed crossover and a few other modes, Legion was pretty much done. It had this whole live service roadmap that Ubisoft now loves to do with a lot of their single player games, similar to what they did with Valhalla, but they cut that short, and support for Watch Dogs Legion ended after less than a year from the game's release. And again, with no mention or indication of there being another Watch Dogs game in the works, it seems the Watch Dogs series may have drawn its last breath, or like I said, at least for now. Watch Dogs has never been my favorite series in Ubisoft's arsenal, but I enjoyed the games, even Legion, despite it being my least favorite, and I think they could have learned from that game, taken some of the criticism, go back to what worked in Watch Dogs 1 and 2, and course corrected in the next game. But unfortunately, it doesn't appear it'll be given that chance. I really do hope that this isn't it for the series though, and that it'll come back years down the line when Ubisoft is willing to give it another chance, but it's likely to be a long time before that's even a possibility. Or who knows, maybe they really are working on the next game and it's just shrouded in complete secrecy, but that seems quite unlikely after the disappointment of Watch Dogs Legion and the series not being mentioned in any of Ubisoft's future plans. This series initially initially started essentially as Ubisoft's GTA clone, but I think the settings and unique twist with the hacking allowed it to be so much more than that. And it's a bummer because I really believed it could have continued to improve as a series. But at the same time, with each successive Watch Dogs game selling worse than the next, it makes sense why Ubisoft wouldn't want to continue to bet on a series that's trending down. I really hope Watch Dogs will come back someday, but as of now it seems to be abandoned, which just feels really unfortunate. Let me know how you guys feel about this. Do you think Watch Dogs still has a future? Are you disappointed that this might be it for the series? I haven't talked about Watch Dogs in a while, but I still really enjoy the games, especially the first one, and I hope to replay them soon, but it's quite sad to see it be tossed aside like this. As always, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you considered leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you're new. Big thank you to my members for supporting me. If you're interested in joining for special perks, the link is in the description. And other than that, thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day, everybody.